So let's get started with the history of lexicography. And first off, the most important question is why? Why is this topic important? Actually, there are a few reasons, but the most important ones would be that, in short, nothing in modern language, worldwide as we know it, would have been standardized, which would have made it, quite frankly, impossible to really know one language in its purest form, quote unquote. And the second is, a lexicon can really reveal a lot about humanity and its historical context, the environment, and the people that are living in it. So with that in mind, let's continue the presentation. So everybody, take a quick guess. Which empire was the first to have documented lexicology? You got an idea? Okay, let's continue, see if you were right. The first records of early lexicography can actually be found at hand of the Sumerians, which lived 4 centuries before Christ. The Sumerians translated their language into Akkadian by creating lexical lists. Lexical lists are enumerations of signs or words presented in columns and classified according to themes, semantic, or graphic criteria. They were intended to help learn Sumerian and cuneiform writing. The most complete one of these works is entitled Ura, Sumerian, Ubulu in Akkadian, The Depth. This collection contains 24 thematic tablets grouped around the realities of nature and society. This kind of text was spread far beyond Mesopotamia and adapted to other languages, not only in bilingual but also trilingual versions eventually. Thanks to these dictionaries, scholars at the beginning of the last century were able to decipher Sumerian and other languages that were mentioned. Following the Sumerians, ancient Egypt wasn't far behind. A series of ivory labels with place names and numbers was found in the pre-dynastic royal tomb Uj in Abydos, which indicates that the hieroglyphic writing system was already advanced at this point of time. The hieroglyphic script never lost its pictorial character because it allowed its users to provide additional semantic information instead of sounds alone. Egyptians, like the Sumerians, created lists. Their interest in lexicography was already around in the Middle Kingdom. The so-called Remusim onomasticon was written at this time. Such onomastic lists were not composed purely out of lexicographic interest, but to serve as inventories for what the gods created. This purpose explains the focus of these lists on the natural world, place names and other geographical terms, offices, occupations, and types of human beings, animals, plants, and agricultural products. The respective terms were collected in lists and arranged according to semantic categories. The onomasticon presents this as an actual list, whilst a similar onomasticon of MNP and later examples are written as running texts. Similar inventories are also known from Mesopotamia. So far, greater extent, this branch of science is labeled today as Listenwissenschaft. Onomastica from the Roman period had to cope with the additional challenge of outdated terminology. For this reason, the Teptinis onomasticon contains superlinear editions of more recent translations, and this provides an additional important insight into the development of Egyptian language and their worldview. And here's already the next chapter. Can you guys think of a Greek author or poet that may have influenced the initial makings of early lexicons? Take another guess, and let's see if you're right. Alright, from the 5th century BC onwards, it was customary for Greek scribes to insert glosses into manuscript copies of the works of Homer, congratulations if you guessed it right, and other earlier writers, explaining obsolete and unusual words. From the 3rd century BC, these glosses were compiled into separate glossaries by scholars at the library in Alexandria. All except a few fragments of these compilations have, unfortunately, since been lost. The form of Greek that was used as a lingua franca throughout the Eastern Mediterranean during the period of the Roman Empire was regarded by literates as incorrect or impure. A dictionary was therefore needed that would present and define correct words and terms, i.e., those that had been used by the great writers of Athens in the 4th to 2nd centuries BC. So I'm going to keep Rome a little bit shorter, but in comparison to the Greeks, the Romans created bilingual Greek-Latin word lists, but these have likewise not survived. An ambitious monolingual dictionary called the Verborum Significatu, I'm so sorry if I totally mispronounced that, on the meaning of words, was compiled by the philologist and educationist Marcus Verus Flaccus about 55 BC. He was also tutor to the grandson of Emperor Augustus, which was pretty cool. By all accounts, it was a huge work. Letter A alone took up to 4 books and was concerned with etymology and cultural history as well as word meaning. This shows the cultural shift on how the use of lexicology was already changing in comparison to the Egyptians, by moving away from a purely religious standpoint to a more cultural historical context. Let's fast forward a little bit and move on to medieval Europe. Latin served as the lingua franca in medieval Europe, providing a common medium for scholarship, admin, and literature. Yet, alongside Latin, the vernacular languages were developing rich literary traditions. In medieval Ireland, for example, the Sanus Cormac, or known as Cormac's Glossary, is an early Irish glossary containing etymologies and explanations of over 1,400 Irish Gaelic words, many which are difficult or outdated. It is held to be the earliest vernacular dictionary in any of the non-classical languages of Europe. Many of its entries are still frequently cited in Irish and Celtic scholarship. The glossary provides simple synonymous explanations in Irish or Latin and sometimes explores the etymology of words. In other cases, it offers more extended encyclopedic entries. Now looking at another side of the world, in the 10th century, the earliest Arabic dictionary, Kitab al-Ain, compiled in the 8th century, continued to influence medieval scholarship. This tradition focused on organizing words by phonetic order, not alphabetically, unlike its predecessors, starting from the deepest throat sounds outward. One of the most important milestones was al-Jawari's dictionary al-Shiha. This dictionary became a foundational reference for several reasons. It organized words alphabetically by root, which was much more user-friendly than phonetic sequencing. It standardized definitions and citations from classical poetry, and it greatly influenced later dictionaries like Lisan al-Arab, one of the largest Arabic dictionaries ever compiled. Also, again, I'm sorry if my pronunciation isn't 100% correct. A significant milestone occurred in the 13th century, with the appearance of Middle English glossaries. A famous example can be found in the Ormulum, a Middle English verse composed by a monk named Orm. To aid his readers, Orm added numerous explanatory glosses for challenging words. These annotations are notable because they represent one of the first systematic uses of English for lexical explanation, demonstrating English beginning to assume a scholarly function beyond speech, and it marks an early shift from Latin reference towards bilingual dictionaries. Together, these glossaries laid the groundwork for English lexicography. The 15th century and the printing revolution. Before printing as we know it, lexicography was more of a local and inconsistent scholarly activity because of frequent errors and the lack of standardized spelling. The invention of Gutenberg's printing press in 1450 changed the situation completely. For the first time, texts could be mass-produced, uniformly formatted, and widely distributed. This encouraged the standardization of spelling and definitions and reshaped the production and use of dictionaries in Europe. The origins of one of the most important dictionaries in the world, the Oxford English Dictionary, trace back to 1850, when the Philological Society of London observed that no existing English dictionary was comprehensive or historically adequate. They envisioned a dictionary that would document all English words, trace their meanings over time, and provide historical evidence for each sense. This ambitious undertaking exceeded anything attempted previously. The first edition of the OED covering words from A to and, appeared in 1884. Although small compared to the final dictionary, it marked the beginning of a work grounded in historical principles. By the end of the 19th century, the OED had become the model for historical dictionaries worldwide, transforming lexicography from a simple listing of words into the recording of cultural, intellectual, and linguistic history. It also documented the usage evolution rather than only prescribing it. American lexicography and national identity. In comparison, the earliest American dictionary began with Samuel Johnson Jr., a Connecticut schoolmaster who published a school dictionary in 1798. This compact reference included roughly 4,100 entries, each with a brief description, part of speech, and short etymological note. In 1800, Johnson Jr., alongside John Eliot, released a selected pronouncing and accented dictionary which reflected the first signs of linguistic Americanization through adapted pronunciations and accents, such as from Native American vocabularies. A major turning point came with Noah Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language in 1828. Webster sought to establish a distinctly American standard of English, promoting spelling reforms, such as color instead of color with a U, and center instead of center with RE, while incorporating uniquely American vocabulary. His dictionary was massive, containing over 70,000 entries with etymologies grounded in comparative philology and illustrative examples of American usage. Webster's work defined American English and provided the foundation for all following major American dictionaries, including Merriam-Webster as we know it today. Expansion of major national dictionaries. The 20th century witnessed the expansion and modernization of national dictionary traditions. The OED completed its full edition in 1928, with supplements in 1933 and 1972 to 1986, incorporating new research and growing historical corpus. In Germany, Duden continued to expand and update, while Grimm's Deutsches Wörterbuch, begun in the 1830s, was finally completed in the 1960s. Across Europe, these projects reflected an ongoing effort to codify and standardize national languages. The corpus linguistics revolution. The rise of corpus linguistics in the late 20th century marked a methodological revolution in lexicography. In 1964, researchers at Brown University created the Brown corpus, a 1 million word, machine-readable sample of American English, the first large-scale electronic corpus of its kind. Following corpora in the 1970s and 80s, including the LOB corpus, the Cobold corpus, and the early planning stages of the British National Corpus, BNC, allowed lexicographers to rely on empirical, frequency-based evidence rather than intuition alone. These corpora enabled detailed analysis of collocations, spoken versus written usage, genre differences, and statistical patterns in grammatical and vocabulary. By the 1980s, lexicography had become a fully data-driven discipline, laying the foundations for modern corpus-based dictionaries such as those published by Longman, Oxford, and Collins. So thank you everyone for listening to the History of Lexicography. I hope you enjoyed learning about a few key facts in the history of lexicography, and I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.